My husband embarrassed me in front of everyone, so I gave him a lesson he won't ever forget. This isn't just a story about a bad marriage. It's about a man who orchestrated the most sickening, public betrayal I could ever imagine, ripping my world apart in front of everyone I loved. And the worst part, he thought he'd get away with it. Owen and I had been married for 5 years, but for a long time, something felt off. It wasn't just the guarded phone or the late nights. It was the constant, chipping away at my soul with his cruel little comments. Maybe if you lost some weight, I wouldn't need to work so late. He'd sneer when he rolled in at 2 a.m., reeking of perfume. Or the time he shared a terrible photo of me sleeping in our group chat, captioned, "Living with this every night." When I confronted him, "Learn to take a joke, or people will think you're pathetic." At a dinner party, he interrupted my story just to tell everyone, "Don't mind her. She gets confused about basic facts. It's cute, but embarrassing." Then he'd pat my hand like I was a child. My best friend, Brenda, texted me that night, "Are you okay? Owen was being a complete jerk to you." I wasn't okay. Every year, I organized this huge charity fundraiser at our house. It was my thing. This year was especially personal. We were raising money for the children's hospital that treated my niece. I'd poured months of my life into it. The night of the event, everything was perfect. We'd raised nearly $15,000. People were having a blast, and I felt so proud of what we'd accomplished. Then Owen asked for everyone's attention. He clinked his glass and announced he had a surprise that couldn't wait. My first thought was a big donation, some grand gesture. Instead, he pulled out a small jewelry box, got down on one knee right there in front of me, and everyone gasped. We were already married, so what the hell was happening? He opened the box to reveal a diamond eternity band, and then, to the entire crowd, he announced that I was pregnant after our long struggle with fertility. I was stunned. I wasn't pregnant. We weren't even trying. But before I could even process what was happening, the room erupted. People were crying, cheering, hugging me. My mom broke down sobbing about her first grandchild. His parents were already discussing names. My boss, who was there, was promising extended maternity leave. Owen slipped the ring on my finger, hugged me tight, and whispered in my ear, "Just go with it." Then he kissed me, deeply, like it was this beautiful, intimate moment. I felt physically sick, but I was so blindsided I couldn't react. 4 hours, I had to pretend. People touched my stomach, gave me advice, asked about due dates. Owen beamed, accepting congratulations like Father of the Year. I was trapped in a nightmare, ironically, while fundraising for children's cancer. I couldn't even escape to cry because it was my event. When everyone finally left, I confronted him. He laughed it off. He said he thought it would be cute to announce it this way, and we could just tell everyone I lost them in a few weeks. Who does that? When I pressed harder, he got annoyed. Said I was overreacting and should be grateful for the expensive ring. I couldn't sleep that night. His behavior was so bizarre, so cruel. Around 3 a.m., his phone buzzed. He was passed out drunk, so I checked it. A message from Steve W. read, "Did she buy it? Is it done?" My hands were shaking so bad. I opened their message history. Steve wasn't Steve. It was Tracy, his pregnant girlfriend of 18 months. The announcement. It wasn't a joke. It was Owen's sick, twisted solution to explain why he'd suddenly need to be supporting a friend through tough times, when in reality, he'd be with her during her pregnancy. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through hundreds of messages, pictures of them together, screenshots of my personal calendar, so he could plan their dates around my schedule, pictures of me that he'd sent her to mock. He'd been sharing our most intimate conversations, our financial details. The final blow. They'd been in our home while I was at my mom's birthday weekend. They'd slept in our bed, taken pictures in our shower. She'd even tried on my clothes. And they'd taken the pregnancy test that morning. She actually was pregnant, with his child. I didn't confront him. Not then. I made a plan. Over the next week, I pretended everything was normal. My insides were churning, but I kept the facade up. I contacted Tracy privately. To my surprise, she had no idea Owen was married. He told her I was his unstable sister, living with him because I couldn't function alone. The photos of us together, just keeping up appearances for family. She was devastated. We met secretly. She showed me more evidence. Love letters, gifts, plans they'd made for their future. He bought them tickets to Paris for a baby moon using our joint account. He'd been systematically stealing from our savings to fund his double life. Over $10,000. Gone. 3 weeks after Owen's horrific announcement, I organized a pregnancy celebration dinner at our house. I invited everyone who'd been at the fundraiser. Family, friends, colleagues, neighbors. Owen was nervous, but he played along, thinking I'd finally accepted his lie. As everyone gathered, I stood up to give a toast. I thanked them for coming to celebrate this special time. Then I announced I had a presentation about our journey to parenthood. Picture this, our living room packed. The same people who, just weeks ago, were hugging me, crying, telling me how happy they were. They're back, plates of catered Italian food in hand, wine everywhere. My mom is beaming from ear to ear. Owen has his arm around me, squeezing my shoulder like he's the world's proudest husband. My jaw clenched every time he did it, but I just smiled. Honestly, if you've ever had to fake joy while your insides are boiling, you know the feeling. My stomach was in knots. I was sweating in places I didn't even know could sweat. My hand shook so bad I almost dropped my glass. But I kept it together, because I knew what was about to happen would be worth every second of this humiliation. People were chatting, passing around baby name books. I kid you not, someone actually brought one. Owen's dad was offering to build a crib. My mom whispered to my aunt about knitting tiny hats. I stood up, tapped my glass, and asked for everyone's attention. Owen looked at me with a smug, "See, I told you this would be fun," sort of smile. I wanted to slap it off his face, but I didn't. I just smiled back. "Thank you all for being here," I said, swallowing so hard I almost choked. "You've all been so supportive. It means the world to me and Owen. I told you I'd have a little presentation about our journey to parenthood. So, let's walk down memory lane together." I hooked my laptop up to the TV and started the slideshow. At first, it was just normal stuff. Photos of Owen and me, from when we first met at the airport for those asking. Our wedding, vacations, dumb couple selfies. The crowd was eating it up, laughing, awing. And then I clicked. The first text appeared on the screen, a screenshot. It was Owen texting Steve W. But the message was coming from Tracy's actual number. I'd highlighted it. Did she buy it? Is it done? The room went silent. Dead silent. Owen's smile started to slip. He shot me a look, half confusion, half panic. I clicked again. The next slide, a photo of Tracy, smiling, very clearly pregnant, standing in our bathroom, holding up a positive test. The timestamp was right there. My shower curtain. My shampoo. My robe on the hook. People started shifting. My cousin gasped. My dad's jaw dropped. I clicked again. Screenshots of messages. Owen sending her pictures of me, captioned, "Look at her. Can you believe she still thinks I love her?" The room started murmuring. Owen was frozen. He tried to stand up, tried to say something, but I just raised my hand. "Sit down." I was shaking, but I didn't care. I was done letting him control the narrative. Next slide. Bank statements. Transfers from our joint account to some Paris travel fund. Receipts for gifts. A plane ticket to Paris in both their names. I zoomed in on the dates, right after my miscarriage. The room was starting to turn on him. His mom looked like she was about to throw up. I kept going. More messages. Tracy's love letters to Owen. Photos of them in my clothes, in my bed. My best friend covered her mouth, looking at me like she wanted to kill him herself. The final slide. A WhatsApp from Owen to Tracy, bragging about how easy it was to convince the crazy sister, me, to host the fundraiser, and how he'd used the fake pregnancy as cover to spend more time with Tracy once her belly started to show. I put that one up for a solid 10 seconds, just letting everyone read. I wanted it burned into their memories. Then I closed the laptop. I looked right at Owen. He was white as a sheet, sweating, stammering, trying to explain himself, but he couldn't string together a single coherent sentence. He was looking around for a friendly face, but there was nothing. Not even his mom would look at him. I said, "So, Owen, do you want to tell everyone the real reason you needed so much support lately? Or should I keep going?" He tried to talk. He really did. He stood up, started blabbering about me being unstable, confused, that it was all a misunderstanding. He said Tracy was just a friend, that the texts were out of context. Yeah, out of context, I thought. Try me. At this point, my mom, my sweet, gentle, cardigan-wearing mom, stood up and walked over to him. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "Get out of my daughter's house." Then, in front of everyone, she took the ring off my finger and threw it at him. It bounced off his chest and landed in his pasta. I swear to God, I almost laughed. Owen tried to grab my arm, but my dad stepped in, shoved him back. There was yelling. My uncle stepped between us. A couple of Owen's friends tried to intervene, but my sister was already on the phone calling Tracy. I had warned her ahead of time that she might need to show up. Tracy, to her credit, was already parked outside with her mom. She wanted backup, and honestly, I get it. So what happens? Tracy walks in, pregnant belly and all. She makes eye contact with Owen and just says, "You told me she was your sister." The room erupted. His parents started shouting at him. My mom was crying. My best friend was hugging me, so tight I could barely breathe. Tracy's mom was fully ready to throw hands. And Owen? He tried to run. Actually tried to bolt out of the house. Except my neighbor, bless her, 5 feet 2 inches retired volleyball coach, blocked the door. "You're not going anywhere until you explain yourself." He was trapped, surrounded by everyone he'd lied to for years. He had no idea what to say. Finally, he started yelling at me, calling me vindictive, crazy, saying I was ruining his life, that I set him up. I let him scream. I didn't care. I was shaking, but I wasn't moving. Not this time. I looked at everyone and said, "I'm not pregnant. I was never pregnant. But Owen's girlfriend is." I motioned to Tracy, who was sobbing into her mom's arms. "He's been lying to all of us, stealing from me, cheating, gaslighting me for years." I turned to Owen. "You're done here." My dad opened the door. Owen finally bolted, slamming into the porch railing on the way out, nearly falling down the steps. That night, I barely slept. The adrenaline was insane. My phone blew up with messages, some apologizing for not seeing it sooner, some just checking I was okay. Tracy and I ended up texting until 3 a.m. She was devastated, but also weirdly relieved to finally know the truth. But the fallout? Oh, the fallout was just beginning. Owen's stuff was still in the house. His parents were texting me, begging me not to press charges. My boss asked if I needed time off. Tracy's mom wanted to meet. And Owen? He was about to find out what happens when you humiliate and betray the wrong woman. I am not letting this end quietly. Things since that slideshow have been a level of chaos I wasn't prepared for, even after nuking my own living room in front of 50 people. I keep thinking, surely I've seen the worst, right? Nope. My phone was a constant landmine of texts, DMs, even old-school voicemails. At first, it was, "OMG, are you okay?" But it didn't take long for Owen to start his spin campaign. Despite being caught red-handed, he told mutual friends and even some of my family that I'd lost it, hacked his phone, and fabricated messages because I couldn't handle him leaving. The sheer audacity. And the worst part, it actually worked on some people, especially those who just wanted things to go back to normal. His parents, who had witnessed the whole thing, didn't call me. Not even a "how are you doing?" Instead, his mom texted my mom, saying it was unfortunate how the situation was handled, and that Owen should collect his things without further escalation. My mom, usually the most patient, cardigan-wearing, tea-brewing person alive, called me, practically hissing down the line. If anyone is doing the escalating, it's their son. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Owen, meanwhile, blew up my phone with messages that got progressively nastier. At first, "Let's talk like adults. We can fix this if you just apologize for embarrassing me." Apologize for exposing his actual double life? No words. When I ignored him, it turned to threats. He'd make sure everyone knew what I'd done, that I'd be sorry that I ruined Tracy's life. I blocked him. He started emailing. Blocked those. He messaged through random numbers, tried to get to me through mutual friends. He even called my dad. My dad, who has never liked Owen, not even at our wedding, just answered and said, "Lose my number." I found out later when Dad showed up, holding his phone like it had a disease. The family fallout was wild. My mom wanted to host a healing dinner with Owen's parents. My dad wanted to file a police report for fraud. My brother Hank started a group chat called Owen is Dead to US and kept adding Owen back in every time he left, just to annoy him. But the wildest part, Tracy, I thought she'd just vanish. Instead, she called. I don't know who to talk to. My mom is furious. Owen keeps showing up at my work. I don't know what to do. I told her flat out I wasn't her therapist, but I'm not a monster either. She needed someone who understood how manipulative Owen could be, and that someone, apparently, was me. So we met at a coffee shop. Her mom was parked outside the whole time, watching me like I might bite. Tracy looked exhausted. She pushed a stack of envelopes across the table. He's still sending me these. Inside were cards with Owen's signature, plus receipts for stuff he bought for the baby. With my money, I might add. She was considering a restraining order. I had no advice. I barely knew how to get through my own day. We just sat there, two women who'd been lied to. For a weird moment, it was almost normal. Neither of us was the villain here. Back home, nothing was normal. I had to deal with practical stuff, changing the locks, figuring out which bills were in my name, packing Owen's junk. My mom insisted on helping, which meant she showed up with 3 empty suitcases, lemon bars, and lectured me about boundaries while putting away my laundry. My dad came by twice, mostly to glare at the door and threaten to break Owen's legs. Then Owen started playing dirty. He emailed our landlord, who I'd never met, trying to get me taken off the lease. Claimed I was no longer a resident and harassing him and his pregnant partner. I had to send my ID, utility bills, and marriage certificate to prove I lived there. The landlord was awkward, just wanted to avoid personal disputes, hinting one of us should move out. The biggest shock was how many people just didn't want to pick a side. Let's just move on. It's none of our business. These things are never black and white. Like, sorry, but if your spouse fakes your pregnancy to cover for his real one with someone else, I'm pretty sure that's not a gray area. Owen tried to come back for his stuff. I told him to text a list, and I'd leave it on the porch. Instead, he showed up while I was home, pounding on the door, yelling that I was hiding his property. I called my dad, who showed up in 10 minutes flat. A weird standoff on the porch. Owen shouting, Dad with crossed arms, me behind the door texting Brenda to call the neighbor if things got ugly. Owen finally left, but not before threatening to call the cops for theft. I told him to try. My parents ramped things up. Mom called Owen's mom, who insisted, marriage is hard, and boys will be boys. I almost threw up hearing that secondhand. My mom told her if Owen showed up again, she'd file a restraining order herself, then hung up. Dad, meanwhile, started researching marital asset division, leaving printouts all over my kitchen. Thanks, Dad. I did talk to Owen one more time in person because he wouldn't stop emailing about his rights. We met in the driveway. No way was he coming inside. He tried to act calm, saying he just wanted to resolve things peacefully, but then started ranting about how I'd ruined everything and turned everyone against him. I told him point blank. He did that all by himself. He got in my face, accusing me of manipulating Tracy and stealing his money. I told him if he kept harassing me, or Tracy, I'd file restraining orders for both of us. He laughed, but his hands were shaking. I didn't back down. You're not coming back in. End of story. He left, but not before slamming his fist into the mailbox, so hard the door fell off. I had to fix it with duct tape. Such a fitting metaphor. Tracy and I aren't friends. Not really, but there's this weird connection. She texts sometimes, usually late at night, with updates about Owen trying to reach out or her mom wanting to move. I send short, blunt replies. But I did help her block his number and lock down her socials. The money problem was real. Owen drained more from our joint account than I realized. Little withdrawals, gift cards, random cash apps. I had to go through months of statements, highlight everything, and send it to the bank just to get them to freeze the account. Owen kept trying to reset the password. At one point, I got a fraud alert because he tried to use the account from another city. It took days to sort out. At home, I couldn't relax. Every sound outside made me look up, half expecting Owen. My dad installed a camera by the front door, which just made me more aware of how many people came and went. The mail piling up, the dishes, the laundry, everything felt like both too much and not enough. When does it get normal again? Does it ever? The most surprising thing was how much people want there to be a good guy and a bad guy. Owen is obviously trash for what he did, but I kept getting asked, "Did you see any signs?" Or, "Do you think you drove him to cheat?" As if relationships are some neat equation. Honestly, it's messier than that. Owen had always been a little mean, a little sharp with his jokes. But I thought it was just his way of dealing with stress. His mom's the same, always making digs, pretending it's all in good fun. I used to think if I just let things go, he'd chill out. Turns out, letting things go just made him push further. So yeah, that's where things stood then. I wasn't living some brave new life. I was still in the house, still fielding calls from the landlord, still trying to get Owen's name off the utility bills. Tracy was still dealing with her own mess. Brenda was trying to get me to join her for a night out, but the idea of seeing people felt exhausting. But here's the thing. I was not letting Owen back in. Not physically, not emotionally, not financially. Every day, I got a little bit more stubborn about that. The last time he tried to get in touch, it was through a mutual friend, Ricardo. I told Ricardo if Owen tried to come back, I'd have the locks changed again and the cops on speed dial. And then, I got a letter, hand-delivered from Owen's lawyer. He was threatening to sue me for defamation and emotional distress, demanding equitable division of assets, the car, half the savings, compensation for lost business opportunities because I slandered him publicly. I just stood there in my kitchen, letter in hand, trying to decide if I should laugh or scream. Things didn't calm down after that lawyer letter. If anything, that was just Owen getting warmed up. I swear the universe must be bored, because it just kept throwing new curveballs. The lawyer letter, shoved under my door in a cheap envelope with my name spelled wrong, was full of legal jargon about defamation, emotional distress, lost opportunities, and Owen's demands. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. I texted a picture to Hank, who immediately replied, "Is this real, or did he use ChatGPT for the template?" For a hot minute, I considered ignoring it, but my parents weren't having that. My dad wanted to show this clown what a real lawsuit looks like. My mom started calling anyone she knew who'd been through a divorce, asking if I could just get everything annulled for emotional reasons. Their hearts were in the right place, but honestly, it just made me feel more alone sometimes. I needed less energy and more actual help. So I Googled local attorneys, read reviews, and ended up calling one. The call was awkward. I had to explain everything out loud. The woman on the other end kept saying, "Wait, he did what at the fundraiser?" She told me to photograph everything, keep all communications, and under no circumstances let Owen back in the house or agree to any private meetings. She also said the defamation claim was probably just bluster, but I should still be careful. So for the next few days, I was hoarding receipts and texting Brenda every time I felt like throwing my phone through a window. Owen, for his part, kept ramping things up. He started showing up at the house again. First, just knocking, then pounding, then standing outside for half an hour, calling people on speaker so I could hear him. I watched him from the living room window, phone in hand, ready to call the cops. At one point, he brought his dad, who just stood there, arms folded, staring at the house like he expected me to come out and hand over the keys. Instead, I called my own dad, who showed up in slippers and an old hoodie, looking so unimpressed it was almost art. There was a silent standoff on the front lawn. 4 grown adults standing there, pretending it wasn't freezing. Eventually, Owen's dad muttered something and they left. I double-locked the door and texted the whole family, "If you see Owen or his dad, don't answer. I'll handle it." The social fallout kept spreading. Some people unfollowed me on Instagram, which, LOL, whatever. But others slid into my DMs to hear my side. It's weird how people you barely know feel entitled to the details of your life if there's a whiff of drama. I kept my replies short. Brenda, on the other hand, went nuclear. She posted a story calling out Owen's narcissist energy, tagged him, and started a comment war that lasted 2 days. I muted everything. The weirdest interactions were with people I saw out in public. Like, I went to Target for paper towels and a candle and ran into Savannah, Owen's cousin. She did this awkward half-smile and said, "So, how's everything?" Like we were catching up after a vacation. There was a pause that lasted way too long, and I just shrugged and said, "You know." She nodded like that explained it, and then immediately turned down the next aisle. It's wild how people just want the bare minimum so they can say they checked in. Owen's mom finally reached out, not to apologize, obviously, but to discuss logistics. She wanted to know when Owen could pick up his belongings that I was refusing to release. I told her flat out I wasn't refusing anything. I'd packed up everything he'd listed, put it in the garage, and changed the code. She got snippy, saying it was unreasonable not to trust Owen to come inside and get the rest. I said, after what he did, he wasn't setting foot in this house again. She started lecturing me about forgiveness and how everyone makes mistakes. I told her this wasn't a mistake, it was a pattern, and that if Owen tried to come inside, I'd call the cops. The call ended with her saying she was so disappointed in how I'd handled things. I just laughed. If being disappointing to people like that is wrong, I don't want to be right. The house was weird without Owen. Not in a sad way. More like every time I walked into a room, I noticed all the little things he used to do to annoy me. Leaving his shoes in the hallway, using my favorite mug, turning the thermostat down to save money. Now it was just quiet. Kind of peaceful, actually. When my parents weren't hovering, the money stuff was still a nightmare. The bank froze our joint account, but Owen kept trying to access it from different devices. I got emails about suspicious activity, and then one afternoon, a call from the fraud department. They wanted to confirm if I was trying to transfer several thousand out. I wasn't. I had to go in person, bring my ID, sit in a tiny office with a guy who looked about 12, and explain the whole thing again. He was polite but clearly uncomfortable, especially when I showed him the lawyer letter. He said the account would stay frozen until we sorted out the divorce. I left with a headache and a stack of paperwork. Meanwhile, Tracy kept popping up. She texted me late one night, saying she was scared Owen might show up at her place. She said he'd been calling nonstop, sometimes from blocked numbers, sometimes even threatening to take the baby if she didn't help him clear his name. I told her bluntly that she needed to talk to someone, family, police, anyone. She said her mom was already on alert, but she just wanted someone to hear her. I felt for her, I really did, but I also felt overwhelmed. I can't fix her life and mine at the same time. The next day, Brenda showed up with coffee and donuts like some kind of chaos fairy godmother. She sat with me at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone, reading out messages from people taking sides. Apparently, Ricardo, Owen's friend who was always a little too invested in our marriage, was trying to convince people that I was dangerous and unstable. Brenda laughed so hard she almost snorted coffee. If you're the unstable one, I'm a yoga influencer. We both lost it for a minute, and honestly, it felt good to just laugh. But then Brenda got serious. She asked if I'd thought about moving out, starting fresh somewhere else. I hadn't. The idea made me feel weird, like I'd be running away. At the same time, staying here meant living with all the ghosts of Owen's nonsense. Brenda said, "You don't owe anyone this house. You can start over." I told her I'd think about it, but I could see in her face she wanted me to go. Not because she thought I was weak, but because she was worried I'd never really be free if I stayed. My parents, of course, had their own opinions. Mom wanted me to move in with them, just for a while, but I knew that would last maybe 2 days before we all lost our minds. Dad wanted me to stand my ground and not let Owen win. They started bickering about it at dinner one night, right in front of me like I wasn't even there. Mom said I needed support. Dad said I needed independence. I snapped that I needed them to stop arguing and let me figure it out. They both went quiet, which, to be honest, was a relief. Things came to a head when Owen tried to come back for his tools. He texted me first, said he'd be by at noon. I told him I'd leave them on the porch. At 11:30, he started calling, then texting, then calling again. At noon, he was at the door, banging so hard the neighbor's dog started barking. I opened the window and told him his stuff was outside. He shouted that I was stealing from him, that he knew his rights, and if I didn't let him in, he'd call the cops. I said, "Go ahead." He started recording me with his phone, narrating that I was refusing lawful entry. I rolled my eyes and told him to leave, or I'd call the cops myself. He finally grabbed his stuff and stomped off, but not before kicking over the flower pot by the porch. Real mature. After that, I got a text from Tracy. She said Owen had tried to contact her again, this time through a mutual friend, Cecilia. Apparently, He was telling people that I'd brainwashed Tracy into turning against him, that I was jealous and wanted to ruin his life. Cecilia, to her credit, told him he was out of line, but she also texted me to say she hoped I could find it in my heart to forgive. I wanted to scream. Why is it always on women to forgive the people who hurt them? Things weren't just tense with Owen, though. Tracy's family was dealing with their own drama. Her mom called me directly, wanting to know if I thought Owen would really try to take the baby. I told her I couldn't predict anything, but that she should keep documenting everything. She sounded tired, like she'd aged 10 years in a month. I felt a weird kinship with her, even though we barely knew each other. It wasn't all misery, though. There were weird, almost funny moments, like when my mom showed up with a box of baby clothes she bought just in case. She sat on the edge of my bed, holding a tiny hat, and said she felt stupid for believing Owen. I told her she wasn't stupid, just hopeful, and that wasn't a bad thing. She hugged me, so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Dad popped his head in, saw us both crying, and immediately retreated to the garage. But the tension never really let up. Every time I thought things might settle, something new would happen. Owen filed a motion to have me removed from the property because I was creating a hostile environment. The landlord called again, wanting to know when this would all be over. I tried to explain, but he clearly just wanted to avoid drama. I started looking up apartments just to see what was out there, and realized how expensive everything is now. Part of me wanted to just leave it all behind, but another part was stubborn. Why should I be the one to leave when I did nothing wrong? Things boiled over at the next family dinner. Mom wanted to invite Owen's parents to talk things out. Dad said, "Over my dead body." My brother Hank said, "Let's just egg their house." He was joking, mostly. I lost it. I told everyone I was sick of being the only one who had to keep it together, that I was tired of being the bigger person. There was a long silence. Then Mom apologized. Dad apologized. Even Hank put his phone down and apologized. I said, I just want a normal life again. No one disagreed. The last straw, for now anyway, came this week. I was coming home from the store, arms full of groceries, when I saw Owen's car in the driveway. I stopped cold. He was sitting on the hood, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. I walked up and told him to leave. He said he just wanted to talk. I said there was nothing left to say. He said he'd take me down with him if I didn't make things right. I told him if he didn't leave, I'd call the cops. He got in my face, close enough that I could smell his cologne, and started ranting about how I ruined his life, how he could have had it all if I just played along. I told him again to leave. He finally did, but not before spitting on the ground and saying, "You'll regret this." So, yeah, that's where things stand now. This is probably the final chapter I'm posting here, because at this point, my life barely feels like mine anymore. If you've made it through the last 3 rounds, congrats. You basically have a PhD in secondhand chaos. I kept thinking there would be a tipping point, some big moment where things settled. But honestly, it was like every time I thought I was getting my balance, something new landed on my head. After the driveway showdown, Owen on the hood of his car, threatening me clutching groceries and trying not to scream, I didn't sleep much for days. My phone was a landmine. Texts from Brenda asking if I wanted to crash at her place. My dad sending links to how to file a restraining order. My mom alternating between recipes and, "Maybe you should just move home for a bit." Meanwhile, the legal stuff just kept grinding. The lawyer I'd found, Greta, was decent at her job, but there's only so much you can do when the other side is allergic to reality. Owen's lawyer sent another letter, demanding immediate mediation. Greta told me not to panic, it was just more posturing. But, not gonna lie, I felt like I was being stalked by paperwork. Every day, some new envelope or email or notification. At one point, I started keeping a folder in my notes app just to track who was threatening what. There's a weird kind of tired that comes from fighting over the same stuff on repeat. It's like being stuck in a glitchy video game. Same level, different monsters. Owen would text about his tools, then about his PlayStation, then about how I owed him for emotional labor. I started leaving his stuff out on the porch in boxes labeled in Sharpa. Tools, electronics, junk. He'd pick them up at weird hours, never alone. Sometimes with his dad, sometimes with Ricardo, whose stare always lasted a beat too long. They never came in, but the tension was always there, like a thunderstorm that wouldn't break. And then there was Tracy. I didn't expect her to stay in touch, but she did. A couple of times a week, mostly late-night texts. Sometimes a photo of her cat, sometimes just a meme, sometimes venting about how Owen was sending her guilt trip emails. Her mom called once, too, asking if I'd heard anything about Owen planning something. I hadn't, and I told her that, but I could hear the worry in her voice. Tracy was due any day now. The last time we met, her idea, not mine, was at a little cafe uptown. She looked so tired. She said she was trying to get her head straight before the baby came and wanted to know if I thought Owen would really try to go for custody. I told her, honestly, I didn't know what Owen was capable of anymore, but to keep her family close and document everything. Meanwhile, my parents kept circling, each on their own orbit. Mom baked enough muffins for a small army and tried to convince me to take a weekend at a spa with her. Dad spent a suspicious amount of time in the garage, fixing things that didn't need fixing, and going on walks where he just happened to pass by Owen's place. Hank started making a spreadsheet of potential replacement sons-in-law, which was mostly a list of 90s boy band members, and that one guy from the gym who always wears Crocs. At least he made me laugh. But the house itself started to feel less like mine. I caught myself looking at the walls, the stupid lamp Owen always insisted was retro, the rug he bought at a yard sale. It felt like living in someone else's leftovers. The landlord kept calling, asking for updates, and hinting that maybe it'd be better if I moved out when the lease was up. I started half-heartedly scrolling Zillow, not really ready to make a decision, but just wanting to see what else was out there. Everything was too expensive, too far, too not home. The real escalation came not with a bang, but with a series of tiny, stupid annoyances. First, the utilities. Owen had called and tried to get the internet shut off for non-payment, even though I'd already switched it to my name. The company called me, all confused, and I spent an hour on hold just to get it sorted. Then the car insurance. Owen reported the car stolen, even though the title was in both our names. That one actually brought a cop to the house, who, after a very awkward 15 minutes and a tour of the glove box, left looking bored and annoyed. The car stayed with me, but the paperwork seemed endless. Then it was the trash bill. I got a notice that the account was delinquent. Turns out, Owen hadn't been paying it for months, and the company was threatening to stop pickup. I called, explained everything, paid the balance, and asked them to put it in my name. The lady on the phone sounded exhausted, like she dealt with this kind of drama daily. She said, "Just make sure he can't call to cancel anything else." If only it were that easy. But the worst was the day Owen's mom showed up at the house. No warning, just rang the bell at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, holding a box of Owen's childhood mementos and a folder of papers she wanted me to sign. She started in with the same old lines. How boys will be boys. How I shouldn't make things harder than they need to be. How family is all you have in the end. I told her as politely as I could that I wasn't signing anything until my lawyer had seen it, and that she needed to stop showing up unannounced. She tried to push past me, said she just wanted to get a few things from Owen's old room. I blocked the door. She tried to guilt-trip me, but I didn't move. Eventually, she gave up, left the box on the porch, and shuffled back to her car. That night, I got a text from Tracy. She was in the hospital. Early labor. Baby coming. She said she was scared, didn't want Owen to know yet, but wanted me to know, just in case. I didn't go, obviously, but I texted her back, told her she'd be a good mom, and that she wasn't alone. The next day, she sent a picture of a healthy baby girl. I showed my mom, who cried. Dad said, "At least some good came out of all this." Hank added the baby's name to his spreadsheet, which made everyone laugh, even through the weirdness. If there's any lesson in this, it's that people will surprise you. Sometimes in the worst ways, sometimes in the best. So, yeah, if you read all this, thanks for being here. This chapter with Owen, it's closed. Finally, even if the rest of the book is still unwritten.